Wow! Hey! Hi! And welcome to another month of being buried under a glorious pile of media. How you doing? I hope the last month has certainly treated you well. As for myself, despite the fact that it's finally hit spring here in Polyland, we're still in the middle of having some pretty frigid mornings and evenings, and that's like even after having 70-degree days sometimes. And if I didn't know any better, I'd almost bet that the weather's broken somehow, and we might be responsible for it. But who knows? Who can say for sure? I'm not some damn weatherologist or whatever. Anyway, we're all here to talk about all those fun little time-wasty things that I get up to. The pickings were a little slimmer this month, as I had kind of predicted that they would be, as things got definitely a lot busier than they have been for the past couple of months. But we still got into a truckload of things. We have a lot to talk about, so let's just get right to it. Sometimes you just need a good old-fashioned boot to the face and a fist raised in defiance of a world that's gone completely mental. And that's exactly where we're gonna start with this round of tunes. It's not hard at all to discern what the mindset of the Chisel's What a Fucking Nightmare is operating from, with song titles like Living for Myself, Fuck 'em, Lying Little Rat, and Vengeance is for Me. This is a band that sounds as liable to light a Molotov cocktail as they are to light a fire under your ass. This is pure, straightforward, driving punk rock at its finest, and they tear through this set list of 16 tracks relentlessly, rarely ever letting up the pace. But even through the shouts, curses, and snarls, there's a lot of great melodies and a surprising amount of hookiness that makes this record a fun listen, even when you're ready to burn the whole damn system down. The last few years especially have proven that punk rock is alive and well, and in a world where we've all got a lot to be angry about, the Chisel is a mighty fine soundtrack for it all. Schoolboy Q has always been an adventurous type of MC. Though his work often contains mainstream poppy sensibilities, his wordplay, topics, and beat selections are often associated with sounds you're more likely to hear coming from underground artists, making him a bit of a stylistic chameleon. 2014's Oxymoron and 2016's Blank Face are two of my absolute favorite mid-2010s hip-hop records, and Blue Lips is the follow-up to those records I've been waiting for. Upon first listen, I think a lot may find Blue Lips to be a bit unfocused and chaotic. Many of its tracks weave in and out of strange jazzy interludes and hype trap beat switch-ups almost on a dime, with lyrical topics darting wildly back and forth from fun hip-hop braggadocio to personal anecdotes on how he's grown over the last 5 years. Taken as a whole album experience, though, the chaos kind of feels like the point to me. Q is a dude that's clearly been through a lot and has also come out the other side realizing his own worth both as a person as well as an incredible rapper, and this record loudly and proudly celebrates both. If you're up for hearing some fun and adventurous production and an MC that can absolutely shred any track that's put in front of him, I think this one's worth a spin. We're kicking anime off this time around by kicking you directly in the feels. We're going right back into Violet Evergarden with a double dose of movies that are looking to drain your little eyeballs of this year's quota in tears. Up first is Violet Evergarden, Eternity, and the Auto Memory Doll. Violet is sent to a boarding school to tend to Isabella York, a brash and unrefined young girl currently in training to become an upper-class lady to mingle and marry into high society. Shortly into their tumultuous relationship, however, Isabella reveals to Violet her past as being nearly homeless and having lived with a younger foster sister named Taylor. The two became separated when Isabella's current family took her in as their own, but did send Taylor to a prestigious orphanage as compensation for her agreeing. Violet gets Isabella to write Taylor a letter, which is then delivered by Benedict, and thus sets into motion a story of a sisterly love that transcends time and distance. This movie is just as high up there on the same shelf as anything in the TV series. Taylor steals the show with her undying love and unbridled enthusiasm toward joining the Postal Service in hopes of one day delivering a letter personally to her sister. Benedict is saddled with taking care of her for a good bit of the movie, and seeing his softer side as he comes to understand Taylor and helps her with her situation was definitely a true highlight. It may feel like a longer episode of the TV series to some, but that's nothing to sneeze at given the pedigree of that TV series. Moving on, the confusingly titled second movie, Violet Evergarden the Movie, takes on a lot of plot lines for its 140-minute runtime and really does manage to land solidly on its feet for most of them. The movie starts strong with tying itself directly to episode 10 of the TV series by focusing on a woman who becomes curious about Violet Evergarden's deeds through the letters her grandmother had kept that were written by her. Meanwhile, 50 years earlier, Violet visits a terminally ill boy who wishes to write final letters to those he loves before he passes. And on top of all that, a character stumbles into evidence that the man that left Violet behind in the first place may actually still be alive. The movie pursues all of these beats in equal measure, seeing the world 50 years after Violet's deeds and how far things have progressed, and the race to make sure the letters Violet wrote reach the dying boy's loved ones is harrowing and heartrending as you may imagine. Unfortunately, the bigger Gilbert and Violet issue is the one that maybe settled the least for me, since it felt like it flew in the face of a lot of the messages the TV series put forth with regards to moving past loss and finding your own reasons to live on. I still enjoyed a lot of the movie, and the way the passage of time and emergence of technology looms in the background and is presented as an inevitability that will force all of these characters we've met and come to love to move on and find new lots in life ended up hitting really good. The movie may be the weakest part of the Violet Evergarden series for me, but it's definitely not enough to keep me from saying it's still a gorgeous series that's absolutely worth a watch. Cute Horse Girls are back to play out even more real-life horse racing drama with the second season of Umamusume Pretty Derby. The second season shifts protagonist to Tokai Teo, who was largely a background supporting character from the first season. She met her horse girl hero at a young age and made a promise that she would become just as successful as her someday, and that'll largely be the focus this time around. While Season 1's themes and character motivations felt a little light and vague to me at times, Season 2 has a much stronger emphasis on growth, having and losing dreams, and overcoming adversity. Teo doesn't have an easy path in front of her toward achieving her dreams and goals, and is often faced with incredibly unfortunate circumstances and difficult choices that constantly push her to have to dig deeper into herself and who she is to persevere. Being Tokai Teo is suffering sometimes, but she's such a determined and focused character that it's hard to ever feel frustrated with her when she's down. Getting knocked down, dusting yourself off, and finding a way to continue are things we can all relate to, and even at its most melodramatic and absurd, Teo's story put a smile on my face. The episode 7 and 8 mini-arc focusing on Rice Shower is also worth noting. It's a touching story with a character coming to terms with what being a competitor means, and how achieving your dream also means taking someone else's dream away. It's handled really well and really only cemented my feelings of Rice Shower being my favorite character, despite not having much to do with the overall story. I enjoyed Season 2 a lot more than the first, and I'm not dogging the first season at all, I just prefer Season 2 having a stronger sense of what it's saying thematically and much better character writing overall. The horse racing hype and the comedic shenanigans are still here as well, and overall it feels like the series really found its voice this time around. If you're familiar at all with the earlier days of my streaming career, this is a game that you'll recognize me having streamed way back in 2015 with our good pals Eleanor and Grimm's, previously known as SWR-JST-DX Selective Memory Erase Effect. Well, good news! It's back! With a complete overhaul and a slightly shorter name, but what remains is that this is just a delightful little 2-hour platformer that has more variety than you'd ever expect. Every world in the game has something new and fun going on, and the stage design is tight and brisk. This game actually has saves now too, so you don't have to start the whole damn thing over if you need to quit in the middle. This is a game that, after all these years, I was just really happy to see cross my Steam update dashboard again, because with the engine updates and sensible tweaks, it's a much easier recommendation these days. So if you're in the market for a really inexpensive, fun little platformer romp, Selective Jump is definitely what I'd point you to. Alright, so I know I'm technically reviewing a demo here, but it's chunky and substantial enough and clocks in at about 2.5 hours, so I think it's definitely something worth having a look at and recommending. This one's for the Phoenix Wright and Danganronpa lovers out there, as it definitely seems to be taking a lot of its character writing and presentation inspiration from those games. You take the role of Morgan, a defense attorney working pro bono, called out late at night to defend a client accused of a murder which seems to be the latest in a line of serial killings. You'll need to investigate the crime scene and put together a solid enough argument to convince the detectives to let the suspect go. You don't go to trial in this specific episode, but you will be wading through a big mound of evidence to put together Morgan's argument that her client, she just met, is innocent. It can be a little too wordy at times while it's handling its character and world building, but this seems largely due to having to introduce a lot of characters and concepts, and I imagine it'll probably flow better in the final game and subsequent cases. And once the premise of the game becomes more apparent, it'll definitely leave you wanting more for sure. The dev plans to release this game in episodic format, stating that it'll be 5 volumes, each around 3 to 5 times the runtime of episode 0, and released roughly every few months. So it sounds like as long as they stick to this roadmap, I'll have a cool new case of this game to run through every once in a while, so here's hoping for episode 1 later this summer. The chill of an autumn breeze gives way to the blustery gusting of snow in the final volume of the Flowers series. It's been a long year in Flowers Land, and the shocking revelations at the end of autumn set the stage for this much more cerebral and mystery-focused finale. Suo has spent the last 2 seasons in the background focused on personal growth, finding her voice, and gaining the courage to finally be prepared to take direct action after the events all the way back at the end of spring. The mystery of what happened with her amitié at the end of Volume 1 and the secrets that lie hidden deep in St. Angrekum's past that tie it all together will be laid bare, but those things also threaten to consume her under the weight of her new position of responsibility, the childhood traumas and scars left by her stepmother, and her desire to keep her friends safe and as far away from her troubles as possible. This volume's narration in particular is the most potent of the entire series, making you really feel like you're in a character's headspace. And there were definitely times I felt like I was experiencing these events as Suo, despite the fact that she's not really a self-insert character. The final volume focuses more on the 7 mysteries of St. Angrekum and their origin, moving the romance plots to the periphery a bit, as the last 3 volumes took care of most of the work needed to be done there. There's a very satisfying, lurking tension that mounts with each chapter of the game that's only pulled back for brief moments of levity with school functions and productions before it pulls Suo and her friends back in, almost feeling like it could jump out and strike at a moment's notice. This volume in particular had to manage juggling a lot of tones and moods, from the soft and quieter moments between girls to Suo's inner voices dogging her, lighter moments of comedy, and the school's mysteries always looming in the background. And to the credit of the writers, they did a fantastic job of making this volume still seem balanced. The ending and revelations come in a huge wave of emotion, and while the series' final hours may feel confusing in some respects, it's key to remember that this is a series that has had a steady focus on understanding its characters and their motivations, which all largely stem from traumas and issues they need to grow as people and friends in order to overcome. The series isn't just called Flowers because it presents lovely imagery. Every aspect of it has been carefully tailored to fit its messaging and themes and promote understanding each other. Not being the most well-versed Yuri media enjoyer, I don't think I came into Flowers with the expectation that by the end I'd consider it the Trails in the Sky of Yuri visual novels, but here we are. It's a slow burn that takes its time, getting to where it's going, has much of the same world building and the same undying love for its characters, as well as a careful use of restraint that lets both the small and large plot points all feel like they matter. Sure, Flowers has its share of cute girls holding hands and kissing moments, but it's not a story that's just building to those moments as a climax. It's a series that requires some patience and understanding to fully enjoy these characters blooming into the young ladies they'll become. Everything good about Flowers and why I would wholeheartedly recommend it is just right there in its one-word title. Well, you knew it was coming, and here we are. Contra Operation Galuga has finally landed after months of anticipation, and I've got opinions. It's been a hot minute since 2011's Hardcore Uprising, which I'd still peg as the last actually good Contra game, though the run-and-gun genre isn't one that's really died out. You can still find some pretty good indie takes on the genre released over the last 5 or so years, and the upcoming Iron Meat is looking mighty tasty and kinda squishy. But for the most part, the Contra name felt forever tainted with the stink of 2019's Contra Rogue Core and destined to sit in the Konami vault for the rest of time. WayForward is back at the helm on a new mainline Contra entry since Contra 4 back on the Nintendo DS. WayForward did release a very middling Contra-like named Spider-Sores back in 2019, and Contra Operation Galuga feels largely built on that game's ideas, if not its engine. I've personally considered WayForward's output over the years to be a lot more bland than most, which may be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I still went into Operation Galuga with high hopes since early footage and the demo looked and felt like they were headed in a good direction. Unfortunately, I just don't think this is it. While this game features a lot of spectacle and over-the-top craziness that make for great Contra titles, a combination of smaller issues that add up over time on top of larger issues too hard to ignore just kept me from enjoying this game beyond moments sparsely sprinkled throughout its 8-stage campaign. I'm gonna warn you now, it's gonna be real nitpicky around here for a couple minutes. I know that what's presented in Operation Galuga will look and feel like a good Contra game to most, and I can't even deny that the game's fun if you just turn your brain off and stop thinking about it. But for me, as a longtime fan who has played these games all my life, there's a lot of minutia that goes into it that I feel this game doesn't really nail down. A big issue for me is the controls, which do function the way most people would expect them to, minus weirdly dropping my jump and dash inputs at random points. Thanks a lot for that. However, my biggest issues arise anytime pressing down is involved, which includes aiming down, shooting diagonally downward, and dropping through platforms. The sensitivity and priority of these actions feels wrong, and I often found my character performing the wrong action, resulting in many deaths. Priority always went to aiming and jumping in all previous games, but in Operation Galuga, priority is given to stopping to go prone and dropping through platforms, making it hard for your actions to flow into one another seamlessly, because you have to stop first, then jump, then aim if you want to perform a jump while aiming down or diagonally down. I have lost far too many lives and runs due to missed inputs and bad control priority in this game, and it makes no sense because even the bad games in this series have always gotten this right. Bigger issues are that I found a number of the stage and boss designs to be boring at best and downright bad at worst. The second stage of the game is a 10-minute auto-scroller, and it just goes on and on. And then there's another one in stage 5. And the fourth stage's lab area drags on far too long and culminates in one of the most unreadable nonsense bosses in the game. And stage 6's temple area feels like a Shantae level that got shoehorned into a Contra game. On top of that, it's also just the worst level design the game has to offer thanks to garbage enemy design and placement, as well as gimmicks that obfuscate the player's vision. So that leaves us with stages 1, 3, 7, and 8 as being the stages I actually enjoyed playing. But knowing that stage 6 exists at all makes it hard for me to ever want to do arcade mode runs beyond grabbing a 1 credit clear the first time. I hate being such a Debbie Downer on this game because there are a lot of things that are actually still really cool about it. The perk system is an interesting way to adjust the game's difficulty in a granular way, and you're never penalized for using it. Many of the unlockable characters have unique abilities and even weapons that can change how you approach the game, and silly as it is, I even admire the effort put into the game's story because the voice actors and directors didn't just phone it in. I imagine a lot of people will probably come out the other side of Operation Galuga satisfied that they got a thing that looks and feels like the Contra they remember. And that's fine, I don't begrudge that at all. Have fun with the things you have fun with. And I do think there's fun moments and stages in here. I'm just a hyper-fixated old weirdo who's played these games too long, and I'm probably a little harder to satisfy than most. And just like safe sex, that'll wrap it up for the month. Anyway, if you saw anything that you liked or you agreed or disagreed with, drop a line down in the comments and let's have a very uncivil and wildly overblown internet conversation or argument about it. Let's really try and just get each other canceled or something. Anyway, thanks so much for stopping by, and I hope you have a nice rest of your whatever, and we'll catch you next time. Bye! Bye!